Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Hello all, and welcome along once again to Elkhart Lake for our live coverage of the Apex Online Racing GTE League. This week our drivers return to the United States for the 7th round of competition here at Road America. This 4.048 mile long circuit is located among some of the most beautiful areas in all of the northern United States. The championship continues to grow ever closer in AM and Pro-Am, and all of the northern United States. AOR still enjoys a rather comfortable lead in the Pro category. The championship provides so unique a challenge for the drivers that some may expect that this weekend could give us a glimpse into who truly is the best of the drivers in each of our class championships. We expect the drivers to struggle a lot today with tire conservation, which may put a wrench into tonight's strategy. Hello everyone and welcome again into the AOR broadcast booth. My name is Brayden Hill and I'm joined today by my producer Niclas Domino and my co-commentator James Clay. James, I'd like to bring you in today simply by asking you to take us for a lap around this beautiful circuit.
Well, right now we're heading to the difficult turn 5-6 section, uphill now, braking down into this hairpin. Nice uphill braking zone, allows you to brake a lot later than you would think. Should be flat out now through turn 7, still very difficult corner, not much runoff on the left hand side, you just have that big curve. Braking downhill now for turn 8, the left-hander. Always a tricky one as we've got a BMW going off in front of us as well, and we're actually going to have to slow down. I don't really know what has happened in the confusion there as we've gone into the fast carousel corner. Right now, I think drivers are on their outlaps, so to be fair, I think we've had a better idea when they come around to the start-finish line because everyone right now is going to be trundling around anyway. Yeah, I think everybody's still on their outlaps, but we're currently on board with Cohen as he heads down towards Canada Corner, turn 12, the right-hander. Yeah, definitely taking it a bit slower than you'd normally expect, but still going to probably use a lot of this big black curb on the left-hand side, try and use as much of the road as possible here through turn 13. Always very tricky because it's kind of off-camera, it pushes you out wide, and in the really difficult final corner, you always get a bit caught out with that. Normally pick up the power a little bit too early sometimes, which is normally what throws you off. But heading towards the start-finish line now, we might be able to get a full lap on board with Cohen. Heading towards turn number 1. You can brake really, really late for this, but you've got to watch out for the curb on exit because they've changed it a little bit. Kind of a suction curb, as you will. Cohen navigates it fairly nicely. This is technically turn 2. I know it doesn't look like much of one, but then you brake very late into the right-hander at turn 3. Cohen a little bit off the apex there, but still manages to get the power down onto the straight. Got to go now through turn 3A and 4. Again, one of these corners that doesn't really look like corners, but I guarantee you they are on the track map and listed as such. Down the downhill braking zone into turn 5. Have to brake very early because of that, and it normally will throw you out a bit wide, but Cohen actually navigates it very well, hits the apex nice and proper. Brake a little bit before that bridge, just like Cohen did, to get it hooked in to turn 6. Here, once again, is that flat-out right-hander of 7. Cohen getting very close to the grass on exit, but he manages to keep it clean. Heading down now into 8. Yep, navigates it very well as he heads towards the carousel and under the bridge. This is where we saw that incident before on the outlaps. Cohen getting a bit of understeer and actually a bit of a twitch on as he comes around here, trying to get the power down out of 10 to try and get a run down the straight through 11 as well. 11 is very difficult because of the exit curb. If you get it a little bit wrong, you'll be flung out into the barrier because you're currently under load. Now through 11A and B down this back straight known as the Kettle Bottoms into Canada Corner. Cohen selecting second gear, getting a bit of a slide on. The tyres weren't too happy, but that might have also been an off track as he tried to run it out a bit wide through turn 13, keeping it nowhere near all of the road be used there, but Cohen on entry for the final corner did use a lot of it, got a bit of a twitch, and that completes a very long lap of Road America. We should be looking around the 2-minute barrier. What will it be as Cohen comes across the line? It is a 2-minute 1.670 as our laps will start to come across the board.
So that is Cohen Van Eyck in the Hyperion Racing Porsche 911 RSR. His teammate was just behind him, has fallen off of his pace just a little bit. Just to start the discussion with you today, James, what do you expect to be the biggest issue for these drivers here today? I've been hearing a lot on the radio regarding tires. What do you expect to be the biggest challenge for the drivers today?
I think under the conditions we were supposed to be running this race, I think tires definitely would have been an issue. We were supposed to be running sort of midday-ish and in the middle of summer, so we're talking sort of 40, maybe 45 degree level track temperatures, but the drivers have been let off due to some iRacing service issues. We've had to end up with a session that's sort of around the early morning, currently looking about 9 o'clock a.m. at the moment, so the track is very cool, only 26 degrees. Obviously, it will warm up as time goes on, but at the moment, I think tyres won't be too much of an issue. I think it's more these tricky, different elevation changes in the braking zone. We were at a very bumpy track last time out, of course, at the Nordschleife, but the actual braking zones themselves tend to be quite flat there, whereas here, some corners will be uphill, some will be downhill, and that really affects how much you can brake into them.
Now we are riding alongside, looking at the right front corner of Alessandro Pontecorvi. He is very much in the battle for the AM championship. So this championship getting ever closer between Calmet, Coombe, and Pontecorvi. So, I mean, I don't think you really could pick any one favorite out of that group so far. From track to track, those, generally speaking, the Ferrari's been a little bit on the lower end of the performance spectrum, as we see Pontecorvi go off a little bit. So almost certainly an off-track there, as he has someone in his slipstream just behind him. I believe that is his teammate, so he will actually get out of the way there and let him by. They'll both actually come to a slow stop. Not sure if Pontecorvi will sit on that lap time, about 9/10 of a second off of the current pole time, which is a 2:01.3 by Jan Calmet, currently on another outlap. Now we're going to take another look at Cohen Van Eyck as he tries to come back around and make up about a 4/10 of a second deficit for the pole as he misses the apex and goes wide there. Certainly not the way you want to warm the tires up, but certainly an interesting way of doing so.
Yeah, we've already done one onboard lap with Cohen, and he's not put the laps together so far. He's been a bit scrappy. They've obviously been clean enough to be counted, but I feel like if he could put it together, he could definitely challenge for the pole, because he's currently sat on the Pro-Am front, on the AM front row even, but still 4/10 off of pole position, and there is definitely visibly time that you can see where he needs to improve, because he's been sort of catching oversteer and sliding and having issues, and I think that is the main point of this track temperature change, is that the front has really gripped up on the colder temperatures, which they tend to do. You kind of want, in a hot temperature, you want to be running an understeery setup if you expect it to go to cold, sort of if you have a day to night transition. Whereas here, obviously, we've kind of gone from a midday back to morning kind of thing, so people are going to be a bit off put by that. But I guess maybe having an oversteery setup sets you good for the race, although drivers can change their setups in between. But yeah, as the track gets hotter, I think a lot of people's balance should go back to more of a normal situation. But yeah, Cohen definitely struggling in that Porsche.
Perhaps do you think that the inconsistency, or maybe how one might say sketchy or unpredictable that car is as we look on board, do you think perhaps that is the nature of that Porsche 911 RSR, or do you think that has more to do with the track than the car itself?
Well, I think the Porsche and the Ferrari definitely are going to struggle more with this, now naturally oversteering track condition. Actually, Cohen has downshifted one too many times and mocked the rear axle there. But yeah, he's just his car is not well balanced at all. You can just tell that he's counter steering through most of these corners, and he's not having a fun time with it. But no, yeah, those two cars, the Porsche and the Ferrari, are going to be suffering the most. The Ford and the BMW, I think, can manage, especially on this new sort of V7.5 tire model. The Ford has become a lot better, and the BMW always kind of was very.
Things hurt.
It's always a interesting point because the cars are so on limit as they go through that section that any slight unbalance, anything, a crosswind, touch of grass, cooked rear tires, the car just cannot cope because it needs everything to be perfect to be stable going through there. As now we have our Pro-Am drivers coming around. I think they've just finished their out laps and will be starting onto flying laps right now. As we are riding on board, I believe that's with Selesnev that we're looking at right about now, heading onto the back straight. Selesnev has kind of had a bit of a quiet season, I think. He's not really set the headlines ablaze, but he also hasn't been sort of in trouble too much, and I guess kind of just wants to build up. I've seen him in the single-seater leagues. I've raced against him there, and he's made the transition over to GTEs now, so he'll be hoping to try and make good progress as the season progresses.
And as we take a look at that bright pink Hello Kitty car, worth taking a note, Falco Verkamp has been promoted from the AM class to the Pro-Am class since our last round at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, so we will want to keep an eye on him and his progress in the Pro-Am Championship. We'll have to see how well he keeps up with the rest of this Pro-Am field, which, as anyone who's followed along with this season and past seasons knows, the Pro-Am category definitely tends to have some of the closest competition and the closest pace of the three categories.
I mean, Pro-Am and Am where you tend to get your very close championship battles as well, whereas up front we've just got Talvar dominating, but here we should be able to see people going at it, scrapping a little bit more. We haven't got as many drivers turning out today. I think we've got just over 30 people that have shown up here to Elkhart Lake, so a little bit of a bunched up field size, but it should still all be fine. We should still get some close racing. It's quite easy to stick with people here, and it's more about trying to make sure you don't make mistakes. And looking at the sectors at the moment, Alpol looks like he's going to be on for a blinder as he comes up towards the line, and yeah, he has just eclipsed everybody half a second currently at the top of the standings ahead of the newly promoted Verkamp, and then everybody else is slotting behind the front running Am of Jan Kalb. But actually, I say that Lutus comes across the line in fourth as Blythe pips him up into the front row of second position.
And those are two of our first laps to come underneath a 2:01, that of Dan Alpel and Owen Blythe. Dan Alpel sporting the BMW M8 GTE, Owen Blythe in the slightly less preferable Ferrari 488 GTE, just about 0.3 off of what is currently the overall pole, though I do expect to see the lap times go well underneath or get close to underneath a 2 minute when we have our pro drivers come out. In practice, Rainer Talvar was among the fastest, as well as Andy Gorton, so we could see Andy Gorton pull out another win, as he did in that exciting finish back at Watkins Glen a few weeks ago. As we take a look here at, that is Werbaui in the black and green BMW M8 GTE, currently being chased down by one of the Hyperion Racing 911 RSRs. Now the question, there are a lot of flat out sections in this track where a slipstream would certainly be beneficial. However, in a lot of these high speed corners, being stuck behind a car also is disadvantageous because of the aero understeer. So put yourself in the driver's shoes, James. Which do you prefer? Would you prefer to have a teammate perhaps in front of you to give you a slipstream, or would you rather just have clean track to focus on hitting your marks and be as fast in the corners as possible?
I think in these conditions where everyone's struggling with the rear end, I don't think the understeer that you would get from somebody is actually that bad of an idea. But also, these GT cars are geared for closer racing. They don't really get affected too much by the wake of a car in front. Obviously, it still exists. If you drive these cars and you have someone in front of you, you will still notice the dirty air. But the slipstream is way more powerful, especially somewhere here like Road America. I wouldn't want them too close because of the fact that I still like to see the corners that I'm going through on my qualifying lap so I can hook them up properly. But yeah, other than that, I think the slipstream can be really powerful if people can get it right.
And we are on board right now with Victor Mateos in a Porsche 911 RSR, currently chasing down a BMW in front of him. I believe that is his Hyperion Racing teammate. So the Spaniard currently 1.3 seconds off of the pole time in 10th position. Currently at the top is still Dan Alpel, followed by Owen Blythe, Falco Verkamp, Andrew Ludis, and Kiefer McKenna. So two of the V3 Racing entries in the top 5 here. Also, speaking of V3 Racing, among the drivers not here today is Merlin Cooper, who was well in the battle for the championship in Pro-Am. Though Stephen Brumfield is also well in that championship. He's currently qualified in the 7th position. So certainly a lot of change within the class on who has the best performance from track to track. But generally, I think rather consistently we've seen Dan Alpel towards the front. And I think he could be one of the favorites for this championship. Now another favorite in a very fast car we're taking a look at here, Tom Hooper, who managed to have a dominating win last week at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. His pace significantly ahead of his fellow Pro-Am drivers as we take a look at the Pro drivers all coming out. 3 Comrade Gaming Fords leading the charge of Pro drivers coming out as we take a look at some of our Pro-Am drivers just finishing up their laps. Taking a look here at Victor Mateos in his Hyperion Racing Porsche 911, just behind his teammate, who will pull off to the right and let him get a clean run to the start-finish line up that very steep hill on the Road America straight. He will come across the line and pull over to the right side and be one of the last of the Pro-Am drivers to finish his lap. This is Stephen Broomfield we're taking a look at here, trying to improve his lap. Looks like he may do so. And he does not improve, as a matter of fact. Oh, yes, he does. Excuse me. He has jumped from 7th up to 3rd, so he will dethrone Owen Blythe from his 3rd place position with a 2:08. So great lap from the championship contender up towards the front of the field. Dan Alpel will pull off to the side. I think he's going to be pretty comfortable with that lap that he set, especially within his classes. That will mark the end of our Pro-Am session. Now, we will take a look at some of the first of our Pro drivers to come out on track. This is John Hallowell coming through the carousel and into the kink. Now, we've discussed how the championship in the Pro category has been a little bit more wide open, but we've also seen in the last couple of weeks some consistent troubles for Rainer Talvar since his move to the Comrade Gaming stable. So, James, do you think there's anyone who could look fit to challenge Talvar for this Pro Championship?
I mean, the thing is that a lot of the people that are challenging him are, in fact, his teammates. Comrade have a big cohort in this Pro category. They've got a lot of drivers up the front, and so it's just a question of how much of an advantage does he have over his teammates? Because you presume that they all share setups within each other. Obviously, some drivers in that stable choose the BMW. Some of them are chosen the Ford, as Hallowell, who was our first driver across the line, has aborted his qualifying lap. But yeah, what he also needs to make sure about is that they all need to stop worrying about is crashing with their fellow Comrade drivers into sort of the first corner, the first lap, because we've had that on a couple of occasions now. Suzuka, we've had a messy start from Comrade. We had a massively horrific incident for them in turn 1 of Nürburgring last time out. So I just feel that it's got to be down to incidents, really, if you're going to dethrone Talvar, but Talvar has been known to be involved in them of late.
Worth taking a look at Andy Gorton, who has just set a purple Sector 2. He stole it immediately from Blair Mann right after taking that. And looks like somebody else has even taken that. Martin Nedelik will just set a purple 3rd sector. Andy Gorton was very fast in practice earlier. I believe he was at the top of our practice charts just before qualifying, before we went live here in the AOR GTE broadcast booth. So after his win earlier this season at Watkins Glen, and a very exciting finish with Alex Bennett, who was in the Comrade Gaming BMW, Andy Gorton looking fit to make a challenge against Talvar for the win today. And I'm sure that'll be rather exciting from the privateer driver, who seems to be one of the only non-Comrade Gaming drivers who seems fit to mount any sort of a challenge on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's kind of a pro and a pro 0.5. You have the Comrade guys and Andy, and then some weeks some other guys will challenge, but the rest of the pros sort of just have to sit behind them and let them do their things, and the Comrade guys dominate. And actually, Blair has aborted his lap and has just pulled off into the pit lane. So it's going to be down, really, I think, to Gorton to go to the top of the times. Martin will, of course, set his lap first. But I think Gorton, yeah, absolutely goes and blows that away. 2 minutes 0.078, almost into that 59 barrier. And actually, Talvar is looking good. He's set many purple sectors. So it's going to be very close between him and Gorton. So we just have to see, as Talvar comes across the line now, where does he go? He goes pole by 0.06 of a second ahead of Andy Gorton. Not quite into the 59s as of yet, but we're only 15,000th of a second off.
Now, on your screens to the top left, you'll see currently our qualifying list for the pro category, but worth taking a look at, Dan Alpel and Tom Hooper, both well within this field of pro drivers in terms of lap time. Currently, Dan Alpel sits 4th overall, and Tom Hooper 6th. Stephen Broomfield even his lap holding up in the 8th position. Owen Blythe holding up in 9th. So a lot of the Pro-Am drivers well on pace with the pro drivers. So we could expect to see a healthy mix of those drivers among the pro field at the start of this race. Now, I want to get your thoughts on this, James. A lot of the official races this week have seen a lot of carnage, as anyone who's watched some of the Twitch highlights from this week will know. What do you expect to see from these drivers? I know we have a relatively high quality of drivers and consistency when it comes to having clean racing, but do you expect to see some carnage at the beginning of this race?
I feel, especially after the last season, although we do have a very high caliber of drivers, this track is still not easy, even for them. I expect to see a couple of drivers maybe skating off the road, especially with cold-ish tires and maybe not that much grip. So we'll have to see how they can manage with that. But I think the real challenge for them is, as the tires get worn, it's just going to get hotter and hotter. I mean, the track temp is constantly going up to 26 degrees now, when we started at 23 when the practice opened about an hour ago. So as this race goes on, the track temp will continue to rise and the tires will continue to decrease in grip. So it could be a case if we see a lot of drivers missing their braking points, going for a bit of a spin, and that kind of thing. It's sort of like what we saw at Suzuka a few weeks ago, where drivers weren't getting involved in incidents with each other, just incidents involved with the track, as I believe we're about to start our second round of driver hot laps.
Yes, if you can see to the top left of your screens, if you're watching the stream, you can see the little blue indicator to the right of many of the drivers, indicating that they are on an out lap. Also, if you look to the top right of your screen, you can see the average I-rating in each of our classes. In the Pro category, we have an average I-rating of 4.3K, Pro-Am is 2.8K, and Am is 1.8K. So you can see the large deficit, not too much of a deficit between Pro-Am and Am. However, a pretty big gap between Pro-Am and Pro in terms of average I-rating. We're taking a look here at Christoph Holstein, multi-time GTE champion in the AOR League, as he comes through the very challenging left-hander just under one of the bridges and now goes flat out to the right. and definitely carrying a lot of speed to the outside of that. Holstein has had a little bit of a rough couple of weeks. We've seen relatively consistent performance out of him, but certainly nothing dominant. So it brings us back to the question that we've been asking over the last couple of weeks. When you look at Comrade Gaming, when they have such a strong roster of drivers, who do you put in charge? Do you put someone like Rainer Talvar? Do you give him the reins of the operation to try to encourage his fellow teammates and try to take charge of some of the team orders, so to speak, and making sure that they can minimize some of those mistakes? Or do you give that role to a veteran like Holstein?
Well, the problem with CRG is that they don't have team orders, really. I mean, it's all well and good putting somebody in charge of them, but they just don't exist. And I think that's step number one for them, is that they at least need to sort of sort out something, at least going into turn one, just to avoid everything that's going on. I mean, I feel like Chris is probably one of the drivers with maybe the coolest head. Him and Alex, I think definitely are sort of the top two in that respect. So I think they could manage it better, but I just step number one for them, I think, just needs to be at least cool it into turn one, because this race, at least it looks like they're going to have Andy going along there with them, so they really need to sort it out and not wipe themselves all out around them and give Gorton the lead and let him run away with things. And yeah, I mean, Talvar and Gorton, I don't think improved on their laps. Blair is up to third. Bennett is therefore demoted down to fourth. And I think that's pretty much everybody up top. And Dan Alpol doing a good job to stay in fifth, and none of the pros, other than those top four, managing to get past him.
So now that is the checkered flag for our 25-minute qualifying session. Now we'll see the Porsche iRacing safety car come out on track, and the drivers grid up just out of the carousel, I believe. They will be gridding up and getting ready to get started on this race. Let's take a look at our qualifying results. On pole, Rainer Talvar in his CRG Ford. Andy Gorton also in a Ford. In the outside pole, Blair Mann, another CRG driver, followed by his teammate Alex Bennett, who I believe is in a Ford, unless he has changed over to, or in a BMW, excuse me, unless he has changed over to the Ford. Then Dan Alpel, the first of the Pro-Am drivers in that beautiful blue and orange Team Shazoo BMW GTE, followed by Mike Skeppers in the iRacing iFlag sponsored V3 Racing Ford. Martin Nedelik, who we've seen had a lot of speed recently, but not quite as dominant in this session. He will be seventh on the grid. Tom Hooper, another of the Pro-Am drivers, followed by another Pro-Am driver, that is Stephen Broomfield, in the ninth position, followed by Owen Blythe. John Hallowell will be in 11th position, the first of the pro drivers outside of the top 10. Falco Verkamp, who was just promoted into the Pro-Am class, will grid up 12th, followed by Michael Edens, Victor Mateos, and Andreas Ludus in the top 15. Then the top 20 is rounded out by Jan Calmet, Kiefer McKenna, the second of, another one of the pro drivers, Philip Schiff, just back there. Patrick Werbury in the 19th position, and Cohen Van Eyck in the 20th position. Oleski Seleznev, who is a strong competitor in our Pro-Am category, he will be in the 21st position, not quite as fast as he was in our practice session. Chris Yardley, Luca Lodato, Wessel Van Wolde, and Thomas Koom will take the top 25 positions. Koom, another of the AM competitors at the top of the charts for that category championship, followed by Ash Russell, Thomas Lagney, Alessandro Pontegorvi, Jamie Smith, Marcus Bueller will be the top 30, and rounding out our field, Danielle Mamano, Steve Olden, Christoph Holstein, who was not able to put down a lap, Craig Dancy, Alex Schmidt, and Jorge Reyes also did not lay down any laps. So we will look back to the front of the field here at Rainer Talvar. The pace car is in. Talvar will hit the loud pedal and gets a good jump on Andy Gorton. Might bring his teammate with him to the inside of Gorton. The privateer entry being teamed up on by the CRG guys. Looks like Blair Mann is able to get to his right side. So Blair going to try to make a move for the second position, coming all the way from third. Oh, and it looks like Andy Gorton's around. Big mistake from Gorton. He'll spin in front of the field, stays off to the left, so no other contact as the field blasts by him on the inside. So a huge mistake from a strong competitor. Now we'll take a look back. Rainer Talvar also off track, still spinning. Looks like the 236 also sideways. A lot of carnage. Not a lot of contact, just a lot of mistakes from these drivers. Rainer Talvar is able to get back on track, so it looks like Blair Mann will now be our leader. So he went from third to first in a matter of 3 corners, as now we go into the really tough braking zone. Alex Bennett makes a huge amount of time up on entry to that corner, but unable to make any sort of move. So it's Comrade Gaming in the top 3 spots, Ford, BMW, followed by, I believe that is Mike Skeppers just behind them in the 4th of that train, followed by the first of the Pro-Am drivers. Actually, a nice group of Pro-Am drivers.
And I don't know, V3 Racing Ford, I can't quite see who that is.
I believe that would be Thomas. Yep,
they have gone off in turn 6. So we will have to wait and see what happened there.
Oh, back in the front, off the track is Mike Skeppers, as he is now under pressure from Dan Alpel. So that's going to be interesting to take a look at. Probably rather frustrating for some of the pro drivers being under so much pressure from the Pro-Am, but a great Pro-Am battle here. Dan Alpel, Tom Hooper, and I believe that is Stephen Brumfield. Actually, both of the V3 Racing cars, Stephen Brumfield and Owen Blythe, those 2 V3 Racing Ferraris, nose to tail, coming through to the final corner of the circuit and back onto the Road America straight. So a 4-pack of drivers, perhaps even 5 in the Pro-Am category, in a battle just behind the top 4 in our Pro category. So Blair Mann goes from 3rd place to the point, followed by his 2 teammates. That is Ford, BMW, Ford. Dan Alpel in the first of the Team Shazoo entries. And then Tom Hooper just behind him in a Radicals Online Racing Ford. And then 2 Ferraris. So actually a rather healthy combination of manufacturers up at the front of the field, with the exception of Porsche. I believe the first Porsche would be Jan Calmet. No, I do stand corrected. I believe it is a little further back. So Porsche not quite as strong in this race. You can see how much deeper Alex Bennett is able to get into the corner compared to his teammate Blair Mann, but Mann clearly much stronger on the exit of the corners, so perhaps that could be either a difference in the performance of the driver or the performance of the car. That was quite an interesting start. I'd like to get your thoughts on that, James. A lot of spins, but not a lot of contact. So a lot of the cars still clean, but a lot of drivers. I mean, we saw our top 2 starters spin off the track. So what were your thoughts on that start?
Well, that's exactly what I said in qualifying. Drivers heading into turn 1 with a few cold tyres and a bit too much of an ambition and not as much adhesion. And the cars Gorton just took too much speed in and just spun the rear around, and Talvar hit the grass because he just understood a bit too much. We see that incident once again at the turn 6 on lap 1. There was a bit of a slightly wayward rejoin from Patrick, but nobody was harmed by it in the end. People just had to take avoiding action. Other than that, I think it was pretty much resolved, other than obviously Dancy and Coombe being a little bit ways down the order now, as Dancy has caught up to the back of the field actually and is behind Lagney and Gorton.
So when we did take a look at that replay, it looked like a little bit of a bad chain reaction. As we now look at another replay, Jan Kelmet, one of the leaders in the AM class, he took a little bit too much of the dirt on exit coming out of Canada corner, and he ended up sideways, so he's lost a significant amount of track position, now being chased down by his Team Shazoo teammate in the Porsche, as well as another BMW just behind him. Looks like they may try to make a move. Calmet making a rather ambitious block to the inside. He'll send his teammate wide going into turn 1, and his teammate will actually lose a position to the other BMW just behind. 2 Porsches side by side now, just behind 2 BMWs. So the Porsches are in this field. They're just hiding from us a little bit. As it looks like, I'm not sure who that is behind them, but he may be looking to make it 3 wide. So very tight battling between our top drivers here.
Yeah, no, everybody is doing a good job of managing to not hit each other too much, actually. It's more people running out of road by themselves, but actually as we go up towards turn 6, there's a bit of side-by-side action behind them. I actually hear a crunch as just as I say that there's been no contact, I think that's Jamie Smith that's around. Yes, it is. I think he got rear-ended by the sounds of what happened. Actually,
That was an ambitious move from the Porsche on the inside.
Yeah, from the Porsche of Alex Schmidt, I believe that was. Yeah, just gets nudged, and around Jamie went. So, yeah, just as I say that that everyone was being nice and behaved and not hitting each other. Somebody gets doored off into the very next corner, just as it always would be. Just looking now at Philip Schiff, qualified a lot further down the rest of most of his pro-am rivals, but starting to make good progress up into 7th in class, not too far behind Talvar after Talvar's half spin on the opening lap, and Schiff actually up to 12th overall, which is, considering the fact I think he started around 17th, no, 18th even, sorry. That's a good first couple of laps for Schiff, as he'll be trying to build upon that good start.
Yes, indeed. Taking a look closer to the front of the field, looks like the battle for the lead is closing up significantly. Alex Bennett putting quite a bit of pressure on his teammate, Blair Mann, as those beautiful, primarily black CRG cars all in a line, 1, 2, 3 currently holding the podium. Looks like a little bit of deja vu from the last few races. They've started almost 3 or 4 weeks in a row, locking out the top several positions. Mike Skepper's the first non-CRG car, currently in 4th position. Also in a Ford. It seems like Ford relatively dominant in the pro class, though with the exception of a few BMWs, including those of Alex Bennett and Martin Nedelik. Interesting to see Nedelik all the way up into the 3rd position, because his qualifying and practice performance was a bit lackluster compared to his more dominant performance prior to the last few weeks. So it'll be interesting to see if he is able to turn up.
And we've got a massive incident into turn 5. There have been so many collisions there. There seem to be 2 separate incidents, I think.
Was Gorton involved there? No.
So
a little bit ahead of it.
Tag from Van Eyck on, I can't tell who that is. And there was another incident just in front. It was actually Marcus Bullheller that was involved with Cohen, I think. And then, yeah, just in front of that, there was a rear-ending, and somebody just absolutely was sent off into the gravel there.
Interesting choice by Marcus not to lock up the brakes.
There we go. There's Pontecorvi. He wasn't hit. He just ran off as there was 3 wide. I think that was Gorton getting involved there in the 3 wide moment, but they all seem to navigate it fine. But yeah, 2 very different separate incidents there that caused a lot of drivers to be down. And this is the thing that is so tricky about Road America, is the braking zones around here with these elevation changes that I mentioned quite a while ago now in qualifying, was that just things like that where you've got such a downhill elevation change, you have to brake a lot earlier than you may think at first, especially as the track temp is going up. It's already gone up 2 degrees since qualifying, up to 28 degrees now, and that just is going to keep on going up and up and up, which means the track is going to get less and less grippy. And actually, there is also a southeasterly wind now that's kind of picking up, which is sort of the direction that straight heads. So there's even a fairly gusty tailwind heading into that braking zone. So it's going to be a really tricky spot, I think, turn 5.
Now, for those watching the stream live, don't forget it is early in the race, but we will be asking later for your nominations for driver of the race. So take note of some of the things happening early. We're going to see probably quite a charge from the back of the field from both Rainer Talvar and Andy Gorton. Talvar already back up to 5th in class, though he still has to navigate through that group of Pro-Am drivers ahead of him. I think it's going to be a little bit difficult to make too much of a charge through the field, given the rather extraordinary pace that we're seeing out of the Pro-Am drivers between Dan Alpel, Tom Hooper, Owen Blythe, and Stephen Broomfield. Now looking at replay here, Alex Schmidt takes a little bit too much grass on exit and gets sent to the outside. Let's see, just able to avoid, maybe just barely taps the wall. Not going to be any damage, so he's able to rejoin the track. A little bit scary for some of those drivers coming on, but Alex, the Russian driver, able to make a clean re-entry to the track.
Very close to the wall, especially with this very slippery grass, though. I think he won't be the last driver to get onto that low grip surface, and yeah, it will catch a lot of drivers out. As we see a 4-car train now, I believe that might be Pontecorvi, trying to get a move down the inside of the Porsche, and he actually manages to make BMW as he actually makes that stick heading into Canada corner. So Pontecorvi up to 6th now in the AM class as they hit around the 10-minute mark after that unfortunate incident into turn 5 where he just seemed to miss his braking point massively. Actually, the BMW there behind him of, I believe, I can't even tell who that is, but the BMW behind there was making a bit of a mistake going through the final corner. Is now Brumfield is onto the back of Talvar. I believe Talvar's probably just actually made the move on him there as he starts his charge up the field, up to 8th now from Talvar after that incident at the start. But speaking of incidents, Talvar's already up to 7th, so we didn't see a car contact with him, but he might have had one to get that many, or he's just had so many off tracks as he's been trying to push the limits that he's already up to 7, but I highly doubt it, so he's probably been rubbing doors with people a little bit.
So now taking a look back towards the sharp end of the field, the CRG guys deciding to stay relatively close in line, though we've seen a few close moments between Blairman and Alex Bennett, perhaps even potential pass for the lead between Nedelik and Bennett. Not sure if Nedelik's going to be content to stay in line there, though. They've backed up a little bit to Mike Skeppers in the V3 Racing 4 just behind them, that very brightly colored car. And just behind him is the first of the Pro-Am cars, so a tight battle for that Pro-Am lead between Dan Apple and Tom Hooper. Owen Blythe has fell off of that battle by about 3 seconds. Talvar between himself and Stephen Broomfield, so that 4-car battle for the lead has turned more into a 2-car battle, with Blythe starting to straggle behind a little bit, which isn't too surprising given the difference in qualifying and practice pace. We did expect to see quite a bit of speed out of Apple and Hooper, and I'm sure it will be called into question after the race, the Pro-Am status of both Apple and Hooper. Of course, both drivers have been having rather consistent performance with up within the pro drivers, so potentially needs to be looked at by the stewards for them to be promoted. But of course, that is something that we'll have to look at next week. Now, taking a look back a little bit further back in the pack, a battle for 7th in the Pro-Am class. That is Seleznev trying to make a move on Wessel van Wolde. He will just get his nose ahead. Now he will take the 8th position going into the very tight downhill braking area, and he will make that pass rather cleanly. That was an impressive overtake.
Good move from Seleznev. As now we're looking at Halliwell versus a Shizuka. There, I don't quite know which driver that is. I would incline to think it's Schiff. Yes, it is Schiff. But he just made Schiff kind of made a little bit of a mistake. The door was open, and Halliwell decided that he would walk straight through it and take the 6th position in the pro class, demoting Schiff back down into 7th position. And he'll be trying to push on and try and get a bit further up the grid because Halliwell's a bit further down than we would normally expect to see him. Normally running well inside the top 10, sort of normally the lower reaches of the top 10, but definitely within it, and just picking up good points for it, especially in the constructor standings, well, the team standings, I should say, with his teammate in the Venom Motorsport car. But now, yeah, he's already started to gap Schiff a little bit, so he's going to be trying to catch up to Veerkamp and get into that top 10 overall. As now we look at this very large train involving Christoph Holstein, who apparently did not have a very good lap qualifying. He said something about fuel in the driver chat, so I don't know whether that was what would cause the qualifying, or whether that was a separate issue to do with the race, but I would be inclined to think it's about qualifying. Holstein now 24th, and actually no, he started from the pit lane, so yes, he did forget to fuel the car up from qualifying fuel, so it went from bad to worse for Holstein, who's really not been in a good spot as of recent, well, sort of the past season in terms of time, because sort of about this time last season that Holstein started to have a bit of an issue, but now actually he's going for a very opportunistic move.
Oh!
That is not what you want to see. I need to check who that was. That was Patrick Welberry, who is just, I don't know if he didn't see Holstein coming. I mean, he should have done. Holstein was massively in front of him, but just, yeah, did not give Holstein much room at all, and it's just kind of shunted him out of the way there.
And I think that may have been backed up a little bit because we did see Craig Dancy just ahead of them get quite sideways, so potentially they were slowing up a little bit for that, expecting him to get sideways. Next thing you know, Holstein gets a great run to the outside of Werbury and maybe just caught him off guard, expecting him to give up the position, and Werbury was just not able to react quite quick enough. Now he has gotten onto the back of one of the Raptor Racing Ferraris, just ahead of him. That is the leader in the AM class, Daniel Mamano, just ahead of him, and another 5 seconds ahead is Victor Mateos, 11th place in the Pro-Am class. So interesting that Craig Dancy, Dancy with another sideways move. Certainly going to have to calm that down a little bit if he wants to make it to the end of this race, because I mean, you touch that grass one too many times, and it will not forgive you. As Mamano makes another move to the right and takes the spot back immediately with a crossover move after Werbury had taken the position. So Werbury potentially struggling a little bit here. I think we're seeing some of these drivers start to struggle on tires. You're seeing them a lot more sideways out of the corners. We've seen the battle for the lead stretch out significantly as we see Werbury come into the pits. Not sure if that will be a little bit of pit strategy or if he's just getting damage fixed from his contact with Holstein, but Dancy now going to get a little bit of breathing room after that very tight run through Canada Corner and Thunder Valley.
Yeah, Dancy also lost these positions last time around because he made another mistake in the braking zone for turn 5. He got extremely out of shape. As actually we see Bennett, I think that's a move for the lead. Yes, it is. So he's decided now is go time. I've done enough fuel saving. I've done enough sitting behind in the slipstream. I want to lead out front, see if I can pull away, try and maybe gap scapers and try and get a comrade 1, 2, 3 in front of Mike. But there's so many straights here at Road America that I just feel that it's going to be very difficult for anybody to break away from slipstream just on raw pace.
Well, I think potentially that could be a little bit of the BMW being a little bit stronger on are a little bit nicer on the tires compared to some of the other manufacturers. You've seen several times as we were watching the battle for the lead as they went through that corner, that really hard braking zone. We were able to see Bennett get much deeper into the corner compared to his teammate Blair Mann, and that was where he was able to make that pass. So getting a good run out of turn 3, 3A, and then was able to make the move cleanly in turn 4. I do believe Mann did give him a little bit of extra room, didn't quite fight it, but it does show the strength of Alex Bennett in the braking zones, which could come into effect later in the race as we get down to the finish.
Yeah, and now we're still riding aboard with Nadleek as he is looking at the back of his teammate. Blair's not really been... I don't know whether it's a tyres thing or whether it's a Blair not being very confident in the Ford. Him and Holstein both switched for this season, and it's not been treating them that well so far. The BMW comrade driver seems to be having a lot better of a time, so Martin might be being a bit more confident right now, eyeing up that second position off his teammate. But I think at the moment, yeah, he's doing a bit of lift and coasting, but just look at under the brakes, he just seemed to be a lot more confident there than Blair. I mean, the BMW has very easy brakes, is what I would call it. They're not the best brakes, but they don't really tend to trip you up all that much. And so, yeah, I think it might just be a confidence issue for these comrade drivers as to why they're doing sort of a switch around. But they need to try and break that gap to Scapers behind, because if they can do that, then they can kind of just fight between themselves. But so long as Scapers is still there, they can't afford to do what they normally do and just run each other off the road.
Now, an update on our pro points leader, Rainer Talvar. He has not made any more progress towards the front of the field. Still has 2 Pro-Am drivers, Dan Alpel and Tom Hooper, between him. That is 7th place overall for Rainer Talvar, the Estonian driver who made a mistake on lap 1 in turn 3. We're now looking at the battle between Craig Dancy and Danielle Mamano. Mamano doing an impressive job of holding off Dancy. That is an AM driver, keeping the Brit behind him, potentially using some of the aero push to keep him behind him. But if you look at the lap times here, it seems like they seem to alternate speed.
Oh,
from lap
Dancy
to
getting a
lap.
very good
Oh.
run through 11. And I think this might be the time for him. I think he really wants to make the move because as much as Mamano's doing a valiant effort keeping him behind, as Dancy takes the inside line into Canada corner, and I think that's going to be job done. As much as Mamano was doing a valiant job keeping him behind, I think Dancy ultimately was the faster driver. He just doesn't have quite the consistency, but on raw pace, he's definitely the one that should be leading out of these two. And he now managed to find a way past on lap 11 as Holstein is going down the inside there of a fellow Ford driver of Luca Laudato there into Canada corner as well. He pulled off the move fairly cleanly, and Holstein just needs to try and work his way up to the front as much as possible.
And there is a very close call for Jamie Smith, the British driver for Hyperion Racing. That could have been very bad. We have yet to see any victims of the kink so far in this race, though I do expect by the end of this race we will see at least one or two drivers end up in the wall there down that long valley surrounded by trees on both sides. Quite a scenic drive through this Elkhart Lake circuit as we take a look at the entry to turn 4. That is Philip Schiff, the Team Shazoo Omega car, making a mistake, taking a little bit too much curve. Great
That
upright
BMW
avoidance.
behind.
That
Yeah,
was
doing a
Kiefer.
great job.
Yep, Kiefer McKenna with great avoidance there in the V3 Racing purple car. The Irishman able to swing that BMW to the right and make a good pass, not making any contact with the Venom Racing driver. So both will be able to get away with that. And Kiefer McKenna is yet another spot. Of course, that was an overall position. McKenna 12th currently overall, but only, I believe, 5th in position at the moment. Now taking a look at a pass between Ash
Seleznev
Russell
and
and
Russell.
Seleznev. Yep, very close there. Let's see. Was Seleznev able to finish the pass? Not quite. Very close. Very good, clean racing between the two of them. Seleznev not quite able to make that move.
Very good
as
from
he's-
Russell there, to be fair. Very, very well positioned driving, but
Yes,
Seleznev very impatient looking at the moment. He really wants to get past. He's very eager to get in front of the Brit in front of him as they head onto the start-finish straight. He's going to be sat in the slipstream, but I don't know if there's quite going to be enough straight left for him. He's going to think about the move to the inside. Doesn't quite have his nose in front, and once again, Russell will just close the door on him and keep his car in front, as that is the Comrade cars getting very close. Bennett using a much wider line there in turn 5 than Man sort of closing up a little bit more on the apex, which is kind of giving him a worse run. I mean, it's not much of a straight there out of 5 into 6, but Bennett's still doing what he needs to keep out in front. But yeah, the cars behind them, the 3 train of Scapers and the 2 Pro-Ams of Alpol and Hooper are doing a good job here to keep on board with the CIG cars and use their slipstream to great effect, because ultimately you think in clean air these CIG cars would be a lot faster, but with how many straights there are, using the slipstream just allows you to keep up closer to the front and not really have to worry about people behind. I mean, Hooper's got a 5-second gap at the moment to Talvar. No, sorry, 3-second gap at the moment to Talvar. Talvar is 5 seconds off the lead. And then a 9-second gap to Owen Blythe, the nearest Pro-Am behind him. So these two up front in Pro-Am are doing an amazing job using that slipstream to great effect to stay and keep their positions in class. And actually Hooper dives off into the pit lane as we see one of our first properly scheduled pitters. I mean, it's still a little bit early, only 25 minutes into the race, but yeah, we've definitely got people choosing to come in, and Talvar has actually followed him there, and he had issues, let's not forget, in Watkins Glen with the pit lane, so he's got to make sure not to do anything too untoward here, and he's being very, very cheeky with the speed, so he's got to be very careful about that. And actually that's Luca Laudato going for a spin through turn 8 there just before the bridge and struggling a little bit to get the car turned around. Eventually gets back on track. Luckily nobody around that he had to wait for, but yeah, Laudato now down to 4th in class. Still going to pick up a lot of points for that, because Unfortunately, we don't have that many people showing up. 36 people showing up in total, so we're a little bit down on places. And speaking of places, Hooper has kept his position as he leaves the pit lane. Talvar behind, just waiting for my relative to update. I think Talvar gained around half a second on Hooper in the pit stop cycle. He's now around 3 seconds-ish behind his, well, actually not class rival. So now, yeah, he just needs to hope that he can use this next stint to try and get back up onto that train in front, and then come the final pit stop window, maybe try and make his way through that train. But he's got to make sure to catch up the 3 seconds that he needs to get onto the back of them.
Now, a little bit of an update on some of our drivers that we have had a few retirements in the race so far. Jan Calmet, that's a little bit of a significant one, considering he is very much at the front of the AM Championship. Steve Olden as well disconnected. A big one, Andy Gorton, has disconnected. So from bad to worse for the Privateer Ford driver. And Patrick Werbury, who we saw involved in an incident, also has disconnected. Now, interestingly, we saw Thomas Kuhn have contact a little bit earlier to an incident not of his own causing, though, with the mistake from Luca Lodato, the Irishman, the Italian, I should say, going off in a little bit later in the lap. Thomas Kuhn has gotten all the way back up to second. A little bit of a lazy spin for Marcus Buehler in the Porsche, but he's able to keep that relatively straight and continue on. So we're going to start seeing some of the pits cycle through. Now taking a look at Owen Blythe, currently second in the Pro-Am category after Tom Hooper came into the pit lane. That is a British driver in the 278 car just ahead of Falco Verkamp, who has made his way between Owen Blythe and Stephen Brumfield. So he has become the meat in the V3 Racing sandwich in the Pro-Am category. We'll have to see where all of this cycles out once the rest of these drivers decide that it is time to come in and pit for fuel. If you're looking at your screen, yes, Falco still has AM stickers on his car. He is, in fact, promoted to the Pro-Am category, so do not be mistaken. He has, in fact, moved up. So it looks like the Battlefield lead has stayed relatively the same. Blair Mann still being led by his teammate Alex Bennett. It's stretched out just a little bit, so the top 4, or 5 even, I should say, remains the same. All those drivers in a line haven't been able to quite get away from each other, almost as if there's magnets between the front and rear of each of these cars. We'll be interested to see as they come around this time if any of them will make the decision to come down pit lane as they exit the final corner and onto the Road America straight. Will anyone dive down? No, it does not look like it. So the top 5 continuing to stay out and have not decided yet that it is time to come to the pit lane. Potentially some issues for Victor Mateos, the Spaniard in the Porsche, seeing him drop down the order. The Hyperion Racing driver maybe that had to have looked like some sort of
that's some sort of technical
hardware issue. Yeah. Just turns left straight into the wall, hard contact, and almost immediately disconnected. So he has gone off of the track. Now, taking a look at the Scottish driver, Blair Mann, who has been staying comfortably in second place. He seems rather content there. So the Comrade Gaming cars, with the exception of Rainer Talvar, have so far been mistake-free. Let's see if they're able to keep it that way for the remainder of this race.
Yes, 2 Scotsmen up front, Mann versus Bennett in CRG, so not just teammates but also fellow countrymen. Starting to gap Nadalik a little bit. He's starting to fall off the back, so he's got to have to make sure that they don't drop him, because if they do, he'll be kind of hopeless to stick with them, because as we saw in practice and in qualifying, he does not have the pace of his most of his teammates. He's lucky that Talvar has dropped away, so that gave him a position, as well as Gorton dropping out. But he's got to watch out, because Talvar is still very quick. Looking at the lap times, he's matching sort of what they're doing up front. He's a little bit slower on his best lap, but last time around he was only a couple of tenths slower. And considering the fact he's fat full of fuel, he was actually still 2 tenths quicker than Nadalik. So yeah, they've definitely got to watch out because Talvar is going to be trying to make a move. I mean, they've got the additional help of Hooper in between everything that's going on, and also they're currently coming up to traffic of Russell right in front of Talvar as we speak. So, yeah, trying to do the undercut, and actually as Hooper goes past Ash Russell, Talvar is going to have to. Also, no, I was just having an issue with my iRacing there, but yeah, Hooper definitely in front of Russell. Talvar's going to be trying to make a move as early as possible, or hoping that Russell goes into the pits as Talvar gets very wide going through the kink. We haven't had a victim there yet, but he was getting very close, and actually we're getting a lot of people now into the pit lane. Yeah, sorry, I was just confused because Nadlik hadn't pitted, but everybody else has followed in the leaders of Bearman and Alex Bennett. So we'll have to watch the pit stop times, see where people come out. I think they're being very helped by Talvar getting stuck behind Russell as Russell dives into the pits. Hooper has been released as well from the car. I think that was Mamano maybe in front of him. And as they are released, Bennett keeps the lead in front of Manscapers, stays third, but there is a big gap from them down to Alpol. Alpol's lost out a lot in all of this. He has been undercut by a lot of the drivers. And in fact, actually, his pit stop time was a lot longer. He was stopped for 20 seconds, whereas Hooper and Talvar were only stopped for 16 because they would have put obviously less fuel into their tanks, because their tanks were obviously still had fuel in because they pitted how early they did. So that undercut has helped Talvar, especially on track position. Hooper is now in front of his Pro-Am rival, but he's got to be careful because come that second stop, if they haven't broken away from Alpol, Alpol will probably end up getting past him on a shorter stop like Hooper has just done in the first round, as we see more drivers just entering into the pit lanes. So we'll have to watch how everybody else rejoins.
Well, I think Nadlik may have gotten caught out a little bit on that pit strategy. Bennett, Mann, and Skeppers all very close together, so he may have a hard time finding a gap to slot into as we ride on board with the Swedish driver, Christoph Holstein, currently trying to chase down Craig Dancy for the 9th position in class. Currently going into turn 4 as Dancy just misses the corner completely, has to counter steer to the right in order to keep from spinning out, as Holstein just continues on and takes it rather easily, able to take that position. As we see Nadalik pit, we're going to want to take a look at that as we look at the replay here. Looks like, quite simply, Craig Dancy felt the car coming around, counter steered to the right, and was luckily able to keep from having any sort of issues. And now we see our leaders coming onto the pit straight. We'll see if they're able to get out ahead of Nadalik. We'll take a look. Here is Alex Bennett coming up the hill. Is Nadalik moving yet? He's just barely moving. I think he's going to lose out a good bit on this, unless he can get up to speed rather quickly. No, not quite. So he will lose a position to Mike Skeppers, who will dethrone him and break up that CRG podium at the moment. We'll see if he's able to make a move on Blair Mann. Looks like Mann falling off the pace of Bennett just a little bit. So the BMW showing its superiority thus far in the race, as we've nearly reached 35 out of 80 minutes elapsed here, as we see a long train of cars there. So rather impressive how close the field has been today compared to the last few weeks. We saw them spread out quite a bit at the Nürburgring Nordschleife last week, but a lot closer battling throughout the field in this race today. So if we look at pre and post pit cycle, Alex Bennett, I should say Martin Nadalik was the big loser in that he did lose a position. Rainer Talvar has managed to make his way between Dan Alpol and Tom Hooper. So Hooper able to leapfrog Alpol on that pit cycle, but Alpol still with a rather comfortable lead from his next rival in the Pro-Am class, that is Owen Blythe, who will soon be under pressure, just about a second between himself and Falco Verkap in that battle for 3rd and 4th in Pro-Am, and Stephen Broomfield another 3 seconds or so back. As we take a look at still watching the Dutch driver, Mike Skeppers, trying to put some pressure on Blair Mann. That was rather sideways moment for Rainer Talvar. What a save. That could have been a horrible end to the day, as Talvar has already caught back up from that spin. So clearly quite a lot of pace in that car. The question is, how long will he take to get past Tom Hooper, who is currently the leader in the Pro-Am category. He is currently stands between Talvar and Nadalik, so we'll have to see how long it takes for Talvar to shed the shackles of Hooper ahead of him.
Yeah, one thing to really note is that Alex Bennett has got a 1.4 second advantage at the moment over his teammate, which means he is out of slipstream. He has broken away from the rest of the pack.
Oof.
So as it stands, if and actually that's a car in the middle of the track.
There's the first victim.
Wessel Van Walder doing the right thing, not doing anything until he waits for everyone to go past. Nobody hit him, so actually very, very good job from everybody involved there. But yeah, you are right. Very first victim of this. Talvar has been pushing the limits through the kink and has gotten very close to being the first victim, but Wessel decided to take that from him. And yeah, now as we ride on board with Talvar, as I was saying, Bennett is, if he can put the lap times together, he's got the advantage of nobody being able to use that hole that he's punching into the air and giving them essentially extra straight line speed. So if Bennett can put it all together, he can build himself an advantage that nobody else can catch. Even Talvar might not be able to deal with if he could get through this train. That is still easier said than done for Talvar anyway, because they've still all got the slipstream off Blair, but Blair is really struggling, I think. As the tyres get older, I don't think he copes with the Ford very well. The Ford isn't that bad on its tyres. I just think that him and Chris, who are new to the car, when that rear starts to go in the Ford, they haven't quite mastered keeping a hold of it. And the track temp is going up. It peaked at 30 degrees for a second there, but it's gone down to 29. But yeah, so it's around that 29, 30 degrees. Air temp also going up. So yeah, the cars are going to get slower and slower at the moment, and that's why the lap times are continuing to drop. We're almost into the 2-minute 3s up front, bearing in mind that pole was a 2-minute 0.0, so almost 3 seconds slower at this point in the race. And that was Hooper actually going to the inside, trying to just maybe see the corner. I don't think he was getting opportunistic with thinking about a move on Talvar, but yeah, Hooper just needs to keep it calm because of Alpol behind. Not really challenging too much, so they just need to try and break away from the fellow AM driver. And actually, yeah, there's Talvar getting past Hooper, so it was actually a move from Rainer. I'd forgotten that Rainer didn't come out the pits in front of Hooper. I thought that they did, but obviously Rainer was behind, so that was bad on my part.
So Talvar currently the shadow looming in the mirror of those 3 cars ahead of him, and Bennett currently has turned on the afterburners, trying to get as far away as he can, as Talvar laying down some of the best laps on track currently. I think Skeppers is a good bit, or at least a little bit faster than Blair Mann in overall pace, as you see Talvar pushing it to the absolute limits, getting his tires in the grass. I think when you have... I mean, we're only just about halfway through the race, and Talvar has really been on the edge of grip, so he'll certainly want to not make a mistake. I don't think really there's been anyone at the front, with the exception of maybe Blair Mann and Martin Nadalik, who haven't made a single misstep at the front of the field. Of course, Alex Bennett as well, but we did see Scapers as well as Talvar, Hooper, and Alpol all having put wheels off the track at one time or another, having some close calls. Though it looks like they've calmed down a little bit at the front. Blair Mann able to pull away a little bit from Mike Scapers.
Nadalik getting very close to the back of Scapers as they went through turn 13. But I think also Nadalik is very fast in that train, especially through the twisty section, which is normally where you can tell if a driver's faster, because they're quite similar on straight line speed, and obviously slipstream is a bit of a misleading factor. But if you can see them closing up through the corners, I think they definitely are faster. Yeah, Nadalik is really, really eager to get past Scapers. I think he knows that he might have a chance of catching up to Bennett, and actually Bennett did not have a good lap last time around. 2-minute 3.1 compared to Mann's 2-minute 2.6, which means that he's back into the slipstream on his teammate. So Bennett's chance has not been taken a hold of. We were saying how good of the drive he was doing, but that whatever mistake he's made on that lap is just probably hindered a chance of getting a very, very concrete win. As actually, that's a send from Nadalik down into turn 5. Can Talvar take advantage as well, as Scapers has to run wide through the exit of 5. Talvar makes the move on that very, very tight and on the edge hairpin where the inside line is always your best friend, and he moves up into 4th position, demoting Scapers down to 5th as Hooper will be trying to get inside that top 5 overall now, looking at the back of Scapers, but Scapers managed to get a hold of his car and try and get a hold of his position.
Yeah, that was quite a move down the inside from Martin Nadalik. Yet another example of the braking power of those BMW M8 GTEs compared to that of the Ford GTE. And, I mean, that was quite a move. Scapers down a net -2 positions, and now coming under pressure from the Pro-Am driver behind him. So I'm sure he will not be too happy about that. But it seems like the pace of the CRG guys has just been unmatched. The question is now, will today be the day that the CRG guys are able to finally put it together, as we see yet another mistake and off track from Marcus Buehler in the W2W Racing Porsche. 7th currently in the AM category. Now we're taking a look at Alessandro Pontecorvi making a move to the right side using the slipstream to get past a Pro-Am driver just ahead of him. So that's the Raptor Racing driver from Sweden gaining a contract. Talvar now.
I've looked at the incidents. He is on 18.
Yeah, he's very close.
That means he has a drive-through penalty. So at any moment, we will see Talvar head through the pit lane because of the fact that he has hit that instant limit. Another driver that's very close is Craig Dancy. He's sitting on 17. Next highest is 14 on Jamie Smith in 28th position. But Talvar does for definite have a drive-through penalty. So although he is fighting his teammate, that's just not really great ideas. I mean, he's had issues with Martin actually wide. So the CRG guys are getting very close, and this is all really being initiated by a driver that's not actually in this race because he's got a drive-through penalty, but it's been very close between Nadalik and Talvar, and blood has been boiling between them. And so, I mean, I can understand why Talvar might want to fight it out of anger, but this is your teammate, and you're not involved in this race, so...
And he's opened the door. Oh, contact! Big contact between Martin Nadalik and that was Mike Skeppers that got involved in that. Big contact. Looked like Nadalik I don't believe there was contact between Nadalik and Talvar, but Nadalik maybe caught a little bit of the grass. Yeah, it looks like he barely caught the dirt on the right side and just door slammed the 196 of Mike Skeppers. That was a huge incident. I was actually about to mention that the battling between the CRG cars was actually giving a little bit of an advantage to Mike as we look at his onboard camera. Nothing he could do there. Hopefully not too much damage on that car. Just absolutely nothing. Nowhere he could go. No way to react to that. Certainly an unfortunate series of events, and it looks like too much damage for him.
Damaged, and yeah,
that's got to be suspension damage. He goes for a spin, and I believe will reset. That's quite a pity. He was having one of his best races of the season. But, I mean, I was even saying that, just about to say that the CRG guys fighting was leaving that door open for him, especially after Talvar were to pit for his penalty. So, I mean, I'm not sure that's even something that could be protested to the Stewards panel other than just a racing incident and nowhere for Skeppers to go. Interesting there, though, that has given Alex Bennett even more of a lead. He's gotten out of the slipstream yet again with a 1.4 second interval between himself and Blair Mann just behind it. Another second back to Rainer Talvar. Now Tom Hooper on the edge of being in position to get yet another overall podium.
All versus Nadalik through turn 5 and 6. And actually, that is Talvar off in
another mistake.
I don't know whether that was. That just looked like a giving up, to be honest. I thought he had a snap of oversteer. Yeah, no, he had a twitch, and then gave up, drove into the wall anyway because he already had the drive through, and yeah. I mean, on that Nadalik incident, as we see a replay of the battle, Alpol going for the move, but gets switched back by Nadalik. On that incident, I think As much as the contact is Nadelik's fault for just running out of traction on the exit of 8, from a CRG perspective, you've got to just look at it and just go, like, why is Rayner fighting that hard with his teammate when he's out of the race? Like, Talvar is about to take a drive-through penalty. He's on 18 incident points. So what is the point in sending it down the inside of your teammate in an unorthodox zone where you're going to end up running him wide? He's going to be on the dirty bit of the track. He's actually got a race, whereas you don't. So what is the point in going for that move? I mean, he made that exact argument when he was fighting Martin before in Watkins, and now the roles have reversed, and he's done the exact same thing he was complaining to Martin about before. So yeah, those two really need to sort out their issues between each other, because it's not healthy for CRG. It's not healthy for Rayner's title chances. And I mean, one person that could challenge him is definitely Alex Bennett, because he's on a run of form at the moment, and now he's been given a advantage that maybe this time he won't lose over his teammate Blair Mann, which is the obvious slipstream gap that he has, and they've just got to sort it out between each other. I mean, it's not healthy when your teammates are not getting along with each other off the track or on the track, and Talvar and Nadelik are just not gelling within that team, and they've got to work something out. Maybe get some of the other, especially senior figures, to get involved or something, because it's just causing incident after incident out on track.
And that is a continued example of the storyline we've seen throughout this season. Now taking a look at Cohen Van Eyck, making... looks like he spun. Yep, just took a little bit too much curb on the inside. Yet another victim of the turn 4 hairpin. But, I mean, this is just continuing the storyline that we've been discussing of parity between the teammates at CRG. I mean, Talvar was originally enlisted within the Radicals Online stable at the beginning of the season, now moved over to CRG starting... I believe the first race was at Watkins Glen, and that has, ever since that, I believe, if memory serves me correctly, he's had 3 or 4 DNFs in a row, so that's got to be significantly hurting his championship hopes, and now we're seeing 2 Pro-Am drivers in the top 5, so we have Bennett, Mann, Hooper, Alpel, Nadelik in the overall top 5, and then Owen Blythe and Falco Verkamp currently battling for the final position on the Pro-Am podium, as well as the 6th position overall. Stephen Brumfield a few seconds behind that battle, as we take a look at on board with Christoph Holstein, currently chasing down a line of Pro-Am drivers just ahead of him. So certainly unfortunate for Mike being an innocent bystander in that incident. I mean, especially for Rayner to have caused that incident and then to just basically make another mistake on his own and end up quitting, so to speak. Well, quite literally, he did end up disconnecting from the session as we look at the slipstream from the Ford of Holstein. We'll make a move to the inside of the bright pink Hello Kitty car, who will now have to go wide. Not able to quite make that move from Holstein, who seems to be, so far, for lack of a better term, the weakest link of that CRG stable. And I mean, the biggest enemy, the biggest threat to CRG seems to be CRG. Throughout the season, we've seen consistently those cars making contact amongst themselves, several incidents where the team has caused its own demise, and we still have another a half an hour or so in this race, so we still have yet to see what the total carnage could potentially be for the end of this race.
Well, Holstein now on the back of a fellow pro driver, and actually, as much as Holstein didn't have the qualifying that he would have wanted to, and he didn't put the fuel in the car at the start, since then he's actually managed, for the past 50 minutes, to actually manage to find a bit of form, a bit of concentration, just start getting through the traffic. It's not, you weren't down here due to a mistake in the race. It's just you're making up for your qualifying, and he's now making his way almost up to the top 5 in pro because of all the incidents that have happened around him. But this is more of the Holstein of old, where he doesn't get involved in anything he shouldn't do. He just needs to sort out the niggling issues that he's got. But other than that, he's starting to at least hopefully rebuild some form that he was lacking, and I'm sure him himself will admit that it's not been plain sailing. It's not what we come to expect from him at all. He's had issues sort of around from mid-season last season around up to even last race at the Nordschleife and obviously qualifying here today. But if he can just get through this final half an hour without anything too major going on. I mean, he's only had 6 instant points. I mean, his car looks a little bit beat up on the front left, so he's probably had a touch with somebody, but in terms of when you're fighting through the pack, you can kind of expect something like that to happen. So if he can get through this entire race and actually put on a good drive, I think that could be at least a stepping stone to getting back to the form that he initially and has just come to show us so often in this league.
Indeed, and he is able to come into the 6th position in the pro class. Rather impressive, the number of Pro-Am drivers at the sharp end of the field. We have 2 pros, 2 Pro-Am, a pro, 3 Pro-Am, and then alternating between pro and Pro-Am. So quite a big mix between those 2 classes. And then with regards to the AM category, a huge gap between Daniele Mamano leading that category and Thomas Kuhn currently in 2nd. That is a Raptor Racing Ferrari currently leading the charge in the AM category. Now taking a look back to Thomas Kuhn, a good almost 37 or so seconds behind. So a massive gap between himself and Mamano, and of course 2 Pro-Am drivers that he would have to get through if he wants to win this race without a mistake from the Italian. Now, to take a look... actually, no, I do stand corrected. I believe it is only 9 seconds between Kuhn and Mamano, so potentially we could see a bit of a race for the lead in AM. Currently, the final car on the podium in AM, the teammate to Daniele Mamano, that is Luca Lodato in the Ford for Raptor Racing. He's another 4 seconds back from Thomas Kuhn, though that gap seems to be stretching out a little bit. Kuhn closing in just the tiniest bit through that high-speed section. So it's been pretty close between them. Currently, we've just seen one of the cars in Pro Class come into the pit lane. That is... I'm not quite sure who that is. He's just come in. Was that Craig Dancy that's come in? Yes, that is Dancy that has come into the pit. So he is currently rolling down the pit lane.
He hit 18 incident points. We did say that he was close.
Then.
So yeah, he hasn't stopped at a box, and so he'll be making his way through the pit lane. He hasn't lost too many positions. I think he's lost 2, 3 now overall. None of them were class positions. So he hasn't lost too much from that. And actually, he's going side by side into turn 1 with Thomas Kuhn. I think that was on his outside. Keeps that position. But yeah, so in terms of points, nothing really changing for Dundee there. He's just lost a bit of time and track position. But yeah, in terms of the story of this race, I think that although Bennett is not quite consistently keeping Blair out of his slipstream, Blair is definitely having to push, and that's what's good for Alex. He can't just be sitting there and lifting and coasting. He has to push as flat out as he can, because what Bennett doesn't want is he doesn't want Blair to just come into the final pit stop and essentially jump in by not putting in, say, a second, 2 seconds worth of fuel. So Bennett's managing to at least, although he's not keeping Blair out of his slipstream, he's at least making sure he has to push to keep with him as they approach those second pit stops, because we are going to start getting very close, I believe, around lap 15 last time around. So we're looking for around lap 30, currently lap 27, so not much more time to go as we see Holstein on the back of Philip Schiff. And this is for a top 5 in Pro. Let's not forget, although they are down in 11th and 12th position, it is still a top 5 position in class. And actually that's Schiff pulling off into the pit lane. He pitted on lap 14 last time around, so lap 26. It's a little bit earlier than you would expect, but still will probably be enough to get him to the end of the race. And that releases Holstein to go and charge and see if he can get... He's got a 14-second gap, to be fair, to his nearest pro, and that is John Halliwell in 9th position overall. So Chris has got a lot of work to do. He's not slow, but I don't think he's quite quick enough, really, to catch Halliwell on pace. But on strategy and maybe incidents, he might be able to get into top 4.
And Blair Mann in that battle for the lead has been flirting with being within slipstream range of his teammate Alex Bennett. So Blair Mann certainly not a slouch, and trying to put the pressure on Alex Bennett as he gains almost 3/10 in the carousel alone. And now we'll go into the flat out section down the hill towards Canada Corner with a pretty good slipstream, gains yet another 2/10. So the battle for the lead's certainly nowhere from over. Bennett potentially struggling a little bit with the tires on that BMW M8 as they go through the, as you called it earlier, twisty bits. As they come now back onto the Road America straight. We'll see if they pit this time. No, not quite, though we see Tom Hooper behind them dive into the pit lane. So the leader in Pro-Am, who came in a little bit early on the first cycle of pit stops, if memory serves me correctly, and that enabled him to get leapfrog Dan Alpel on the last pit cycle. So Alpel will now inherit the lead in Pro-Am. Owen Blythe will slide up into the second position, followed by Falco Verkamp, though that battle far from over for the final podium position. And Verkamp continuing to put pressure on the Ferrari ahead of him. Again, just a reminder that despite having the AM plates on his car, Falco has been promoted to the Pro-Am class. So that is a battle for position between himself and Owen Blythe. About 0.8 of a second the gap there, and then another 5 seconds back to Stephen Broomfield. So even though there are relatively big gaps between the battles, there have been quite a few very close battles throughout the field. Great racing so far today. And now to look back at the battle for the lead, just 0.2 of a second between Blair Mann and Alex Bennett. We're on board with Mann here in the area of the track where we saw that incident between Skeppers and Nadalik. And Mann certainly has turned on the afterburners. Not sure if Mann has sped up or Bennett has slowed down, but that's going to be interesting to take a look at. Who will put themselves in the best position for the final pit stop of the day? Mann, with the even though he's sliding through that corner, the Ford looks to be a relatively stable platform there. Very strong in the braking zones, which is interesting considering how Alex Bennett originally took the lead at the beginning of this race by outbraking Blair Mann. So perhaps Blair becoming more comfortable with the brakes and the way he wants to drive this car, still well within slipstream range. I don't expect that either of them will come in this time, so the battle for the lead rages on as they will be coming up on some lapped traffic relatively soon. Excuse me. And Thomas Kuhn has come into the pit lane. Not quite sure if he's just in there for fuel. And a good gap now between the battle for the lead and the battle between Dan Alpel and Martin Nadalik. Of course, that's not for position. Alpel in the Pro-Am category in the Team Shazoo car, followed by Nadalik, whose pace seems to have fallen off significantly since his contact with Mike Skeppers, potentially some aero damage as well as some suspension damage to the left front corner of that car after some rather hard contact. So we'll have to see. Now it looks like Edens has come into the pit lane, so we're seeing the pit cycle come through again. We expect to see a lot of these drivers come back onto the track. Tom Hooper trying to take 6th place away from Ludus. That is the Estonian driver just ahead of the Brit. And he will obviously has the far superior pace. That battle for the lead still staying rather close. Not sure if Blair Mann is trying to go for that lead or if he's just trying to keep the pressure on Alex Bennett and stay within slipstream range to try to save a bit of fuel. And I believe we should see them come in within the next 3 to 5 laps.
I would say as early as next lap, to be honest. They pitted lap 15 and we're heading on to lap 30 at the end of this one. So obviously double 15, 30 you would expect. Possibly they might have extended it one more lap. So they could go 16 or maybe they're going one shorter. So they could be pitting this lap. Only time will tell. But one interesting thing is because Talvar took pole, he gets an extra bonus point for this race. So if Bennett wins, he will be tied on points with Talvar. If Mann wins, he will have a massive lead over Talvar, whereas if he finishes second, I think will have around a 6-point lead over Talvar in the championship. So as the things stand at the moment, Talvar is really, really in a bad spot in the championship because these two up front are set to get either close, tie, or even overtake him.
Now we're taking a look at Alexei Seleznev making a move on the inside of the Venom Racing BMW. That's BMW on BMW. Hello Kitty coming around the Team Venom car. The driver from the Ukraine making a strong overtake there into turn 4, and he's starting to pull away a bit, so showing that he has great pace compared to Philip Schiff. So that's another example of a Pro-Am driver outpacing a Pro driver. Rather interesting. I mean, looking at it, we have more Pro-Am drivers currently in the top 10 than Pro drivers. So that's rather interesting to take a look at. Now looking to the left side of your screen at the overall standings, Alex Bennett, Blair Mann, Martin Nadalik has cycled through to the 3rd position as Dan Alpel has come into the pits. Falco Verkamp now is the last of the Pro-Am drivers who were at the lead to come into the pits. I believe actually Kiefer McKenna also has to come in, so that's 4th place and 6th place respectively. Now looking at the replay, Thomas Kuhn with a bit of a mistake off the track. Is he able to keep it out of the wall? Yes, he is. So that was a great save by Kuhn, able to minimize the damage there. Could have been a lot worse for the UK driver. As we see Philip, I believe that is Schiff who is in, or sorry, Alex Schmidt is in the pits, as well as Smith in the AM category. So 2 drivers have gone into the pits. Schmidt exiting the pits now. Now taking a look at the battle for the lead, they are coming up on one of the Radical drivers. Not quite sure who that is ahead of them, but now we'll see our leaders come in. Yeah, Dancy's been quite far off the pace this week as we see the 2 drivers come into the pit lane. Blair Mann with a spectacular entry, able to get right up onto the bumper of Alex Bennett. That's going to be great for him on his pit exit. We're going to have to take a look at this and see who comes out with the lead. Mann with a pretty solid entry. We'll see who gets into the box first. I believe they qualified consecutively, so that's going to be close between them. They're both riding through the pit stalls that are open. You can see the rear end of the retired car of that is Mike Skeppers that they've just driven through. Now we'll see who is the fastest to go out. Currently about 45 seconds, coming up on 45 seconds in the pit lane. And that's going to be a close battle out, but it looks like Alex Bennett with the faster pit stop to get out. That was actually almost identical pit stops, 12.6 and 12.6 seconds, so very solid for both of the CRG cars. Now it's just a question of who can have the pace to the end. I think they're going to be going absolutely all out from here to the end. 17 minutes remaining in our 1 hour and 20 minutes. I'd like to remind you as we approach the end of this race to, if you're in live chat watching the stream from home, to enter your submissions for the driver of the race, which we will announce after interviews at the end of today's event. And interestingly enough, with this pit cycle, we now have 3 Pro drivers on the overall poll, though Nadalik still has yet to make his final pit stop of the day. He is about to go through the kink. He's just exited the carousel as he throws that BMW in. He was 1 lap late compared to his teammates on the first pit cycle, so not a surprise to see him come a little bit later as he is catching up to the AM driver of Thomas Kuhn ahead of him, the last remaining V3 Racing Ford currently on track. And now the top 6 in the Pro-Am category are currently scored 4th through 9th. Actually, John Hallowell breaks that up a little bit, taking a position from Stephen Broomfield. Now we see Martin Nadalik come into the picture. Now looking John Hallowell making that pass on Stephen Broomfield. So that was not a pass 4 position in class, but rather a class 4 position overall, as Broomfield a little bit faster through the left-hander towards the carousel. He will not have the preferred line, but does give Hallowell a little bit of a run for his money. The German driver trying to be a little bit of a nuisance, it seems, for the 4th place running Pro driver. Nadalik has come into the pits. Bennett and Mann will now come across the line and pass him. Mann with a great slipstream behind. Bennett going to try and get into his head a little bit. Bennett has had that Ford in his mirror all race long, so can't be too can't be too out of the ordinary for him to have those headlights in his mirror. Bennett going to have to try to keep those eyes out the front and not out the back, keep his focus and not make any mistakes. And I'm not sure really who has the better pace. This is going to be the real test here in the last 15 minutes of the race. Tom Hooper has taken, or rather has maintained the lead in Pro-Am after the Pro-Am class has cycled through. Though he is currently on the overall podium, so Martin Nadlick will fall into the 4th position, 8 seconds off of the overall lead. And Dan Alpel and Owen Blythe currently battling for what is the 2nd place position in Pro-Am category. Now on board with Blair Mann, the Scottish driver, coming to the Road America Bridge and entering the carousel. Looks like the BMW a little bit stronger on entry, but you can see the rear end of the M8 just sliding out that wide booty, just trying to dance around there, as Blair Mann trying to show what speed he has, though it looks like Bennett certainly much stronger in this area of the track. James, what do you think you've seen out of Blair Mann, and do you expect that he will be able to make a move?
It's going to be really nip and tuck. I mean, last time we came to Road America, we had 2 Tepper teammates last season fighting out in these closing stages. It was a Ford behind a BMW. Here we've got 2 Comrade cars, a Ford behind a BMW. Talvar prevailed that time around in his BMW, so perhaps Bennett will be looking at that and thinking he might be able to do the same. But Mann is also going to have to try every sort of trick in the book, because I think Bennett, especially after losing that Watkins win, will be wise to trying to defend as hard as possible, and will be trying to give it his all to try and stay in front. This will be very crucial for the championship, as I mentioned before, so both these drivers looking like they'll be very close up to the front of the order. Mann, no matter where he finishes in this top 2, will take the lead of the championship. If he is in that top 2, Bennett can draw for 2nd place if he wins the race, and if he doesn't, then he will stay in 3rd, but he'll be a lot closer to the front. So these 2 CRG drivers will really not want to take themselves out of the race, especially considering the fact that if they do, they would let a Pro-Am driver take the lead of the race if they do manage to fall off the track hard enough. Hooper actually, with that contra pit strategy that's lost him about 5 seconds in the pit stops from pitting earlier, is now well out of it on pure pace. He's now 8 seconds off the lead, and he's now got Nadlick behind him, but he's just going to be thinking about Alpol, who is another 3 or so seconds behind all of that. So that's his main primary objective at the moment, but looking at things, he's probably going to end up getting promoted. So actually these positions do count, and this could be a class podium rather than just a on-track podium. And actually, that is Christoph Holstein down the inside, around the outside even, I think, of turn 5. Battling, that is, with John Halliwell. I said he was not going to have a chance of catching Halliwell, but other than strategy or incidents, clearly one of those 2 things has happened, because Holstein is now onto the back of top 4 position in Pro. So let's not forget that this man started from the pit lane. So that's a absolutely mighty job from Chris if he does manage to get past John and up into that top 4, because other than the CLG drivers up at the front, he would be the top Pro driver in this race, which is, I mean, just a testament to how many instances we have. And he's actually getting very loose through the right-hand kink of turn 11. Don't want to get too out of shape there so late in the race, because it could just be game over if you don't keep a hold of your tyres. But Holstein looking very, very quick. Obviously, Brumfield at the front of this train, so Halliwell's going to be getting slipstream off him as well. But Holstein just looks like he's absolutely adamant to get that 4th position and try and get the best result he can in class. Obviously, like I said, there might be some promotions with perhaps Hooper, especially. I don't know about Alpol, because he's done the entire season, whereas Hooper has only done a couple of races. So, and that's Jamie Smith just having a bit of a torrid day, unfortunately. All started off with that incident at the start of the race that wasn't really his fault, where he got hit off in the hairpin, and it's just kind of gone downhill from there. And Holstein getting very loose through 1, as Lodato goes through 5 and does a bit of a half spin, nothing really major there, as Holstein is still on the back of John Halliwell, heading towards turn 3, A and 4, which are essentially just straight lines, but they exist on the track map, so I'm going to use them anyway. Heading down towards the heavy braking zone in turn 5. Holstein down the inside. Can he make it stick? Oh, the Ford has very good brakes, but so does the BMW. And actually, Holstein
it's fun.
get a little bit on that instant grasp. If he can get it going, he won't lose out from it. So, yeah, no, that's fine for Holstein. A little bit disappointing from him, but he's just got to remember he was still fighting very hard for a position, so doesn't want to let it get him down. Got to remember his rears are going to be very hot, so that's the main thing he's got to look after. Don't keep spinning, because he had that issue in Spa where he sort of overheated the rear tires and never got them quite back. So what he's got to do is he's just got to calm down, get his head down. He hasn't lost any positions. He just lost maybe the chance to get another one, but he's still 5th. And actually, that is a car off in front of Holstein. Who was that?
Well, the interesting thing about that battle was that it allowed Stephen Brumfield to get back around John Halliwell. Halliwell had made that pass. We're taking a look here at Marcus Buehler, just did not turn in early enough, ends up in the tire barrier, so a few mistakes from that driver. Now, taking a look at Holstein, he has obviously fallen off of that battle between Halliwell and Broomfield. I expect that Halliwell will probably be able to make the pass on Broomfield. Now, an interesting thing, we haven't talked much about the overall battle for the AM podium. Danielle Mamano has had a comfortable lead from the start of the race. Now, with the spin that we saw a little bit earlier from Luca Lodato, that allowed Thomas Kuhn to come up into the 2nd position, so that will have some championship implications for the British driver. He's able to get up into the 2nd position. Not much of a chance for him to catch up to Mamano with a 20-second gap. Quite a dominant performance from the Italian driver in the rather appropriate Ferrari. Now a 2-second gap between Lodato and Thomas Kuhn, but I don't think Lodato has the pace to quite catch up. Now in 4th position, Alessandro Pontecorvi is another several seconds back, so he's not going to be able to really do much. But the thing that really has been sitting in the back of my mind is whether Blair Mann is really trying to pass Alex Bennett yet, or if he's just biding his time and waiting for the right time to make the move, as we see Danielle Mamano off track. So he better be careful, because, and a little bit of contacts with Alex Schmidt. I think that was ahead of him, so that could be huge. Oh, and it looks like he's actually had suspension damage. That's suspension damage, so we could see Koom have a win here. A very unexpected turn of events from Mamano.
A massive twist into the tail of the AM Championship.
Oh.
Obviously, Buehler was not for position, and he's just had so many issues that really, sometimes you got to question, was it worth staying out and harming somebody else's race, because Buehler's already massively right hand down before that contact, and actually that's Mamano having more incident and off into the wall.
Suspension damage like that, I can't imagine he'll have any sort of speed, and now we're seeing the pass that is for the lead. So Thomas Kuhn will now inherit the lead. We could be looking at 3 wins in a row, I believe, for Thomas Kuhn, or actually, no, 2 in a row, rather. There was a race or 2 in between, but that has to be so disappointing for the Italian driver from Team Raptor, having such a dominant lead, and to have someone in the class just horribly off the pace to cause severe right front suspension damage. I think Mamano has just decided to call enough and reset that car. I'm not sure there's really much of any benefit for him to come back around, and his teammate Luca Lodato with a spin just behind Thomas Coombs, so that mistake will pretty much lock things down for Coombs as long as he's able to stay on the track. So just as we discussed, really, actually, that was something of a commentator's curse, wasn't it? As soon as we started talking about how dominant a performance we were seeing out of Mamano, he ended up having some contact with Buehler, and that's going to be interesting. We're going to have to see if we see anything in the Stewards panel for that. Now, with coming up on just 5 minutes left in the race, Blair Mann continuing to put the pressure on Alex Bennett. I really do question if he's just sitting there, biding his time, or if he really is trying to make that pass, because Mann really does seem to have turned up the pace. But I'm really not sure if he's just waiting for the right time to make that move. because if you do make it too early, there is, of course, the potential for Bennett to make a move coming back. Now, Tom Hooper, nearly 10 seconds behind this battle. Martin Nadalik, 10.3 seconds behind. So Hooper with a rather comfortable lead for the Pro-Am title at the moment. Nadalik may look to take away the overall podium, though Nadalik pretty much has third place locked down in the pro category. As we continue to watch this battle for the lead, it's going to be interesting to watch how this one ends up. If Alex Bennett will have learned from his mistakes in Watkins Glen that cost him the win there, or if Blair Mann will be able to pull it off for what I believe would be his first win of the season.
I believe it might even be first drivers. Both no. Blair, of course, won last time out at the Nordschleife. We are
Oh, yes,
forgetting.
you are right.
So this would be Blair's second win on the trot. It would be Alex's first. He has had 2 second positions, as has Blair so far this season. Alex finishing second in both of the American races, in fact, actually. Both Watkins Glen, and I'm struggling to remember where the other one was that we went to. Where else did we go?
Daytona.
In the States? Daytona, of course. It was Daytona. So,
And I do believe we will be at Sebring in a week or two's time.
it's Monza next week, and then it's Sebring and Road Atlanta. So we are doing a big North American end to the season with a bit of Italian added in. So, yeah, Alex clearly enjoying the North American races that we've had so far, and he might be able to pick up another good result here today. But obviously, Blair will be trying to stop him from getting that. But these are 2 teammates, both fighting for the championships. They don't want to run each other too far off the road. Blair getting a bit scrappy there as they went through turn 13 and onto 14. So Bennett's got a bit more of a gap as they head towards the more straight line and power and slipstream-oriented sections, giving Alex more of an advantage that he has that gap, and keeping Blair probably behind for another lap. So Blair is running out of time if he wants to try and make that move. He doesn't want to leave it too late in case he makes another mistake just like that he already has done. 2 minutes 50 left on the clock, so this looks like it will be the penultimate lap unless they can somehow get to the line in around 50 seconds, which I don't think they can do from here at turn 3. So yeah, I think Alex will hold on for this lap, and it's all about what will happen come lap 39. As they head down towards turn 5 and past the lapped car of that's Cohen Van Eyck that they are lapping. He gets out of the way nice and cleanly, so that doesn't affect them too much. And heading into the twisty section, actually Blair once again getting oversteery, so that's going to hinder him once again. Next opportunity for Blair is really into Canada corner, perhaps. So yeah, Blair's going to have to be really careful, try and pick his moment, try and find a moment, because he doesn't really seem to have one at the moment. So he's just going to have to keep on the back of Alex and see if he can make a mistake instead of Blair, but Blair is just sort of oversteering all over the shop at the moment.
Indeed, and as we close in on the final few minutes of this race, this is going to be what will end up being the battle for the championship. So if Talvar isn't able to get it together for the last few races of the season, this could be the deciding race. Is Dan Alpel able to get around Martin Nadalik? So Nadalik clearly struggling after that contact with the 196 of Mike Skeppers. That contact initiated, of course, by his teammate Rainer Talvar. Looks like Blair Mann actually falling off of Alex Bennett rather significantly, now over a second gap. So potentially a little bit of a mistake from Blair through Canada corner that time, and Alex seems to be rather calm and cool at the wheel at the moment, as they've gotten around the lap traffic. That was the AM driver, I believe, Cohen Van Eyck, that they were just able to get around. So it is the top 2 in Pro, followed by the top 2 in Pro-Am. Those are the top 4 positions. And right now, Luca Lodato is currently behind Alessandro Pontecorve, so I believe that was another mistake from the Italian driver in the Raptor Racing Ford. Those are, of course, Raptor Racing teammates. This time, the Ferrari able to get around the Ford now. And, of course, Danielle Mamano out of the race and lap down after some contact with a rather slow Marcus Buehler. So that is a change for position. I think if you're Thomas Kuhn, you certainly want to hear from the team radio that they are battling But that battle for position for second place in AM is about to be broken up for the overall battle for the lead. So this could end up influencing the end of this race for the overall win. Looks like Nadalik has managed to get back around Dan Alpel, so that's a little bit of an interesting battle between those two. Yes, so a little bit of a mistake from Alpel that allowed Nadalik to get back underneath him. So that battle rages on between the two BMWs. Now we take a look at, that's the battle for, well, now both battles. The battle for second in AM, and in the background you can see the battle for the overall lead, and of course the win of the race. Alex continuing to stretch out a little bit.
And Alex has had to gap into Canada corner, so as they come around the last two turns, this should be the end of the race because the 1 hour 20 minutes has elapsed. So coming around turn 14, I don't think Blair is going to be close enough. Bennett is out of the final corner. Yeah, Blair is nowhere. So this should be a first win of the season for Bennett as he comes across the line to take the win, take another podium in the United States. Blair, following up from that win in Nordschleife last time around, now takes the lead of the championship from his teammate after controversy with more CRG drama, as Hooper rounds the start-finish line and takes third place and the win in Pro-Am, and Alpal behind takes second in the Pro-Am category, with Nadalik taking the final spot on the Pro podium. Blythe will now come across the finish line and take the final position on that Pro-Am rostrum, and Verkamp, the newly promoted man from Am into Pro-Am, takes 7th overall and 4th in class. Kiefer McKenna, I think, is running out of fuel, maybe? Because Halliwell goes past him and takes 8th, as Brumfield also goes past and takes the position. But Kiefer, yeah, I think he's had some sort of issue because he's dropped all the way down to 11th as Holstein takes 10th and finishes a few seconds behind Brumfield. So he wasn't too far off that 4th position.
Yeah, and that battle in AM is still not over. They have not yet taken the checkered flag there, so that is an active battle for position. Right at the end here, that is between the Raptor Racing teammates, the Ford of Luca Lodato trying to chase down his teammate Alessandro Pontecorvi in the Ferrari. He will stay in the slipstream. Not sure if he's close enough to make a move into Canada corner. A little bit of early braking from the Ford. You can see those bright red tail lights come on, and it looks like, unless Pontecorvi makes a mistake here, I think he will be able to maintain the position. So that will be second and third in the AM class decided. Again, that's another win for Thomas Kumis. He just comes across the line to take the checkered flag. Alessandro Pontecorvi will take the checkered flag just now as he comes over the crest of the hill, and there is the checkered flag for those positions. So the majority of our field has now come across the line. You see a few drivers coming to a stop and resetting those cars. And so now we'll be able to take a look at the final results. Alex Bennett gets his first win of the season in Comrade Gaming. Blair Mann finishes a solid second. Certainly nothing to be down on about with that performance. Tom Hooper with a second consecutive overall podium as a Pro-Am driver. So that will certainly be an interesting conversation topic next week as to whether or not he deserves to be in the Pro category. Martin Nadalik with I would say, a disappointing result after being well on the podium and in the battle for that win prior to contact with his teammate Rainer Talvar. Dan Alpel, Owen Blythe, and Falco Verkamp took 5th, 6th, and 7th. Owen able to hold on to that final podium position in AM, able to hold off the charging Falco. John Halliwell was able to hold on to his position at 4th in class after a spin from Christoph Holstein. He was able to get past Stephen Brumfield, who will be the 9th place finisher. In 11th overall, Kiefer McKenna. Andreas Ludis will take 12th. Oleski Seleznev in 13th, followed by Michael Edens and Philip Schiff taking the top 15 positions. Now, let's see if we can take a look at our championship standings, if we have those updated after this race. Also worth noting, Alex Schmidt, Thomas Lagney, and Craig Dancy were in 16th, 17th, and 18th. So that was two of the Porsches, followed by a Team Shazoo BMW. So, James, do you have any thoughts? And I would like to remind our people watching on YouTube to submit your submissions for driver of the races. Now we can take a look at our standings. Not sure if those have updated. Yes, there we go. So I believe Blair Mann, if this is correct, I'm not quite sure. If this is correct, Rainer Talvar was able to maintain his lead currently over Blair Mann, as well as Alex Bennett, though that championship getting much, much tighter at the top three there. Martin Nadalik and Andy Gorton round out the top five in that championship. Mike Skeppers all the way down in 15th, despite a great performance for most of the race today. He was not able to finish, unfortunately. Now let's see if we can get our Pro-Am standings here. In Pro-Am, Stephen Broomfield still leads the Pro-Am standings by 8 points over his V3 Racing teammate, Owen Blythe. And Oleski Selesnev with a relatively quiet finish today. He is third place, another 6 points back, 2 points back from there to Dan Alpel, who had a very, very strong finish today. Behind them, of course, Thomas Hooper, the Tom and Tom show, I should say. Tom was able to get the class win and an overall podium. And now let's move on to our AM standings. In the AM standings, Merlin Cooper currently leads with 64 points. Alessandro Pontecorve was able to tie Thomas Kuhn with that late race pass. That was how he was able to maintain a tie. If not for that pass and that mistake late from Luca Lodato, I believe he would be 1 point behind Kuhn. But of course, that is the closest championship we have here. Merlin Cooper not able to attend today in the V3 Racing car. So that's two V3 Racing cars on the top three in the standings in AM. Also worth noting, Daniele Mamano, despite having a wreck and not finishing this race, he's up 3 positions with 53 points. So just 10 points out from the podium. Now, I'd like to bring in, let's start at the AM class. Let's bring in Thomas Kuhn for an interview. With us, we have Thomas Kuhn in the booth. 2 consecutive wins. How does it feel?
I have no clue how I managed to win that race, to be honest. Lap 1, there was a big incident at the top of the hill, and I went the wrong way to avoid it and ended up in the wall.
Maybe a little bit of an internet issue. Let's see if we can...
And
if we can get... Actually, let's get Tom Hooper in here first. See if Thomas can sort out his internet. And with us now, our Pro-Am winner and overall podium finisher for 2 weeks in a row, Tom Hooper. Tom, how does it feel to get 2 podium finishes despite being in a theoretically lesser class? And actually, let's start with that. How does it feel?
It feels good. Unexpected to get a podium here as well. Nords I knew I was strong at is probably my best track, but here it was unexpected. I obviously gained some positions when Rainer, Martin, and Mike all crashed. So I mean, I wouldn't say I really deserve it, but I mean, I crossed the line before everyone else behind me, so.
Okay, I think we're having some technical issues. So I think I'll take over. So obviously, this will all bring into the question of where do you think class-wise you should be? Obviously, you started when you came back. You joined mid-season. You started back in the Pro-Am category, which is where you currently place. But you had a bit of a messy race in Watkins, but past that, you've now managed to hit 2 overall podiums in a row. Obviously, Nordschleifer was perhaps a better track for you than Road America. Road America was a bit lucky, but you were still very much a top 5 contender overall. So do you think that if you do end up getting promoted, that it's a justified situation?
I mean, I'm ready for the challenge really, because now looking at it, I've improved a lot, especially since last season when I was battling Rick, who won the championship over me in Pro-Am. But I'm ready for the challenge for a promotion really. I don't mind it.
Well, that's definitely a interesting concept if it does turn out that way. Otherwise, it'll be more of a mounting a championship challenge, I'm sure. But yeah, if you do get promoted, then very good luck in your endeavors in a different category. And we look forward to seeing you next time out in Monza.
Thank you very much.
And I think next we will probably end up talking with our race winner overall, and now definitely championship contender, Mr. Alex Bennett.
Hey there.
So, first win of the season, after a strong run of a couple of podiums, especially at American tracks, we actually noticed that you had a couple of second places here. With the incidents surrounding your teammates, you now a joint second in the championship, provisionally on points. So, do you really think that the result today could help you mount a challenge for that overall title?
I don't know. I mean, Monza and Sebring are pretty good tracks for me, but I'm atrocious at Road Atlanta. So I think I'd need a bit of luck to really challenge those guys to the title. But you never know what happens. I mean, there's been a lot of crashes and a lot of retirements for people this season. So at least until we get to Road Atlanta, and I'm gonna try and not think about it too much and just run clean races as best I can.
Obviously, around you today, there was a lot of incidents going on, especially once again with your fellow CRG drivers. There was some fair and respectful racing between you and Blair, but do you think that, especially considering 3 of you now were definitely very close within the championship, that there's going to have to be some sort of internal words about it, because you can't really be affording to door each other off when you're in such a tight battle for the champion?
Yeah. So today, I mean, definitely up front, there were a lot of crashes. I mean, the first lap with Andy and Rayner, and then myself and Blair were having a lot of problems through the race, which is why we're struggling pace wise. And then that kind of allowed Rayner to get back up to the front train. But I mean, I've had a look at what happened with him and Martin, and it looks like Rayner went for a pretty aggressive move, but it doesn't seem like there was contact.
No,
So
I will tell you that Rayner, I don't know if Rayner has told you, but Rayner had the enough incident points to be on a drive-through at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
So,
yeah, I mean, it didn't look like there was any contact there, and I think Martin wasn't quite able to see where the exit of the corner was. He needed to turn out of it a little bit and just dipped a wheel in the gravel and spun it across, which unfortunately, I think collected Mike Scapers as well, which is a shame because he was having a really, really good race. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the championship between us, rules as usual. We'll race each other. We'll do our best not to hit each other, and hopefully we can put on a pretty good show for the last 3 races.
yeah, and we look forward to seeing it, obviously. Good luck now that you are definitely solidly within the championship battle, and we look forward to seeing the show that you can put out on track. Thank you very much, Mr. Alex Bennett.
Thanks, man.
And then I believe we will be speaking we're speaking once again to our AM winner, Thomas Coombe.
Hello.
Okay, I think we are
Hello.
good to hear. Yeah, I can hear you. Another win, definitely mounting a good case for yourself in the championship at the moment. So take us through your race from your perspective.
Well, if you told me at the end of lap 1 that I was going to even be on the podium, I wouldn't have believed you, because lap 1 there was a bit of chaos at the top of the hill, and I tried to avoid it, but I just ended up going the wrong way and sliding off into the wall. So I'd lost a lot of time on lap 1, but not far through the first stint, a lot of the AM drivers seemed to have a big accident, so that put me quite high up. after not many laps at all. And then it was really just a case of trying to keep it on the track. So I was struggling a lot with the car, it was sliding around quite a lot. I was nowhere near as quick as Daniele and Luca. They were a lot quicker than I was. So I was just trying to keep it on the track really and take home P3. And then with about 5 to go, Luca spun, which gave me P2. And not long after that, Daniele had an issue. I don't know if he crashed with someone else or if he spun on his own. But yeah, I don't have a clue how I won that, but I'll take it.
I will tell you that Daniele had an issue lapping Marcus, I believe it was, into turn 1, which caused an incident which gave him suspension damage. So yeah, there was an incident there. And another interesting thing, obviously, is every race you've started this season, you've managed to pick up a podium, 3 wins and a 3rd place, and that's really helped you kind of solidify your stake in the championship fight. Obviously, with 3 races to go, things are kind of heating up. So, do you feel that with the races coming up, you got a chance to challenge Alessandro and Merlin?
I definitely hope so. I think Monza and Sebring should be not too bad tracks for me, but Road Atlanta is definitely a struggle. So I think if I am going to have a chance at the championship, I need to get some really good results in the next 2 races, because I don't think the last one's going to be very good.
Well, still all the best of luck, and hope that you do at least do well at those tracks you said you're going to be very strong at, and very good luck with the championship fight. And yeah, good, and hope to see you doing very well, Thomas Kuhn.
Thank you very much.
All right. Not sure if you guys can hear me clearly now.
We can hear you. I mean, your mic sounds a bit different, but I believe we can all hear you.
Alrighty. So just to close out today's broadcast, I'd like to ask you, gentlemen, your nominations for driver of the race. Certainly a difficult one. They had some interesting up and down moments from several drivers. Nick, I'd like to start with you with your nomination for driver of the race.
There, now they can hear me. Well, yeah. So for me, it's Bennett. You can, winning in that way. That's just impressive. And Hooper as well. Completely outperforming his class, and I think there is an argument for him to get in into a different class now. But it has just been, I will say, yeah, there's a lot of good performance out there, but I think the race, the overall race was just last man standing. There were a lot of drivers who crashed and had horrible luck out there. So, but yeah, for me, Bennett is the driver of the day.
And your thoughts, James?
I think yeah, you can't ignore the amazing drive from Bennett today. I mean, obviously it wasn't dominant, but he just controlled the race, did everything he needed to, got in the right position at the right time, pulled off the right strategy, and that's kind of all you can ask for. He picked up the 25 points for winning, and that was pretty much that. Hooper and Alpole, I think you can also say that they definitely outperformed their class today. I mean, if Alpole continues on this form as well, there's also an argument for him to be promoted. Obviously, Hooper's iRating, not as well as his pace, is very high. Alpole is 2.9 Ki rating, so on iRating grounds, he doesn't seem like he should be up that high, but his pace and his recent form especially seem like he might want to be going that way. And he's on a run of strong results, a lot of podiums. Obviously, he didn't have a great result at Nordschleife, but that's never really a great indicator. So yeah, all 3 of those guys, I think, really, really did an outstanding job today.
And for me, I'd say I have to agree with you guys. Hard to argue against Alex Bennett for driver of the race. Really never put a foot wrong. Was really on point with his pitch strategy, and I don't think anyone could have had really any more of a perfect race. So unless you have any other thoughts, I think we're just about ready to close out the broadcast tonight.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
So, yeah, as we are at the end of tonight, we hope to see you once again next week because we will be heading to the Italian Temple of Speed that is the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. And after such an eventful race that has closed up the championship in Pro and has kept the fight alive in the other two classes, it's definitely not something that you'll be wanting to miss. And we hope to see you next week. Good night.
Good night.